I give everybody a minute to jump on and join us. Make sure you smash the like button wherever it is on your thing. I'm battling a little bit of a chest cold sinus thing, so bear with me a little bit. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate everyone joining me tonight, and always more fun to talk about a Georgia Tech win than a Georgia Tech loss. This team never ceases to amaze me. Whenever I think they're down and out, they punch right back in the face of the opponent and win a game they're not supposed to win. And last night was certainly no different. Kind of a wild game. I felt like watching it even before the game. There's a little bit of the same vibes as Miami. I was talking to my buddy Andrew, who covers UNC, and they were a little bit talking about, well, the season's still laying out like this, and the fans are being way too negative after the loss to Virginia, and they've got all this stuff to play for. And I said to him, I was like, if that's the attitude that North Carolina has going into this game, there's going to be problems. Now, I don't think this was a game where like North Carolina played poorly. I think their defense sucks. They have a similar problem to Georgia Tech. They have a bad defensive team. And offensively, they just didn't make enough plays, and it bit them in the tushy, as my mom would say. And Georgia Tech took advantage and really just pulled some Paul Johnson crap and ran right down their throats in the fourth quarter. That was one of the most improbable ways of coming back that I could have ever imagined. And it was great for Haynes King to be able to kind of, do his thing, run the ball when he needed to run the ball, and also lean on Dante. And just the way Dante Smith played was unbelievable. I feel so happy for that young man. He's been through a lot just physically just to be on the field. And, it's a big thing with him is he's very prideful about it. He doesn't want to talk about, why it's taken him a while to get going. And because he just doesn't want, he Dante would like to play at the next level, I think. And he's a guy that's like a car with a lot of miles on it. They got to manage his miles a little bit right now. And he was banged up going into the season, and it took him a while to get him going. And it seems like maybe he's hitting at the right time if he can start to replicate that. He did the one thing that I was really impressed watching of Marion Hampton and British Brooks, the two running backs from North Carolina. They both hit the hole so fast, and that's the thing that's been missing. Jamal's a little bit more of a dancer, tries to read and react and run, uses speed. Trey Cooley doesn't have great foot balance for whatever reason, and is a little indecisive. But Dante is just like, I'm going to hit the A gap, the B gap, or whatever, bounce it outside if it's not there initially. And he's very decisive, turns his shoulders, and it makes a huge difference when you do that and get a little head of steam going. And that's what Marion Hampton did. He just ran full speed every play. And most of the time it worked against a not good defensive team. Against other teams, they're going to run into a lot of trouble with that. But, there's teams in some ways, some mirror images of each other. UNC with a lot more skill talent than Georgia Tech on the offensive side. And, a slightly more accurate quarterback and, some better receivers. But it was very interesting because these are two kind of eerily similar teams, and that's ultimately kind of how it played out. I'll dive into the questions from the board first, and then we'll jump into the chat and take some questions in the chat as well. And then also coming up this week is the first exhibition for Georgia Tech men's basketball. So do they have better receivers than Georgia Tech? Yeah, it's an interesting question right now, isn't it? Georgia Tech's receivers certainly hold on to the ball better than theirs at the moment. Georgia Tech exhibition Wednesday night, Clark, Atlanta. Be good for people to get out and support that, especially with no home game for the next 2 weeks for football. So make sure you get out and check Damon Steinmeier's squad out. It helps them out to get some people in the building. Make sure you smash like. and tell your friends about the site. Tell your friends about the promo we're running. In honor of Paul Johnson, I went with Believe It, 46% off for every point Georgia Tech scored in the upset win over North Carolina off an annual subscription. Tell your friends. It's great for the site to expand. You guys are our biggest asset. You are our best advertising. And so I implore you to tell your friends. So, all right, so let's go. We return the core of the offense next year, plus develop even more offensive line and wide receiver depth. Is Key going to do what it takes the D to get it to average? With a top 20 and a defense anywhere near the 60s and 70s, it's an 8-4 plus team. Yeah, the problem with the defense, and I'll be as nice about this as I can be, they have a Jimmy and Joe's issue. They're not developed and talented at linebacker, and they're really hurting at defensive end still. You have Kyle Kennard and Kevin Harris who are doing a decent job. And then at field end spot, the other defensive end spot is just a complete mess. You have Micaiah Scott trying to play there, and he's setting an edge, and that's good in run support, not as good in pass rush situations. He's not a pass rusher. You're getting nothing there. That was a position that had, 12 sacks last year, 11 sacks, whatever it was. Those two end positions, you're starting to get the rush end production. You're getting nothing from the other spot, and that's a huge issue. It's putting stress on the entire defense, including the secondary. And then the linebacker play is just not as good. It's not. It's hot and cold. Trinilius Tatum played really well the last two games after playing, a really rough go of it for the first 6 or 7 games for him. Now you have other guys kind of regressing or not playing as well. They can't seem to get it where two guys play well at the same time in that group. And the safeties are not giant box safeties that are big hitters. That's not really how the defense is built. So you're asking them to do that. They're asking these guys to cover for too long. And the big thing with Drake May, and you saw with Thomas Castellanos, the quarterback at Boston College, guys who are going to extend plays are going to give them trouble because they don't get a pass rush. So it's just sort of this whole thing. And when you're running the ball like the way North Carolina does, it makes it even more difficult because you can't necessarily even blitz that exotically because you could really put yourself out there where you have a one-on-one situation in the second level. So the defense is, it's, as I said on the board, Trinilius Tatum's the only in-house recruited linebacker, and him and Kyle Eford, who's playing for the first time now, are the only two guys they've signed in the entire time from December 2019 when Jeff Collins was hired through now that is able to play at Georgia Tech. And, they were playing with guys at Paul Sign, David Curry, Charlie Thomas, and then bringing in a portal guy like Andy Ely. Like, they just do not have the dudes. And so you can't make, like, Jacob Cruz be ready or Nakari Ashley or Ashton Heflin. Like, those guys are either ready or they're not. Clearly they're not if they're not playing. Cruz is at least up with the varsity and dressing. I don't know if we'll see him this year, but, they missed on a lot of dudes. Katavian Franks, Tyson Miguez hasn't, done anything. And then there's about 4 guys who aren't even on the team that they signed during that span. So that's the core of where your defensive issues lie. Regardless of who, you could have literally Nick Saban calling this defense, and it wouldn't matter because you don't have the horses to do certain things. And that's where it's tough on Kevin Shearer, who's now in this audition phase. It was tough on Andrew Thacker. And then Thacker was trying to create negative plays and was fundamentally unsound at times, and that's why he lost his play calling, I think. That's my personal take on it. I haven't asked Brent about it yet. That's not a conversation I have in the middle of the season. Any insight on the D coaches having trouble getting the calls into players on time? I'd assume it's related to coaching changes, but that's the minimum qualification or D coach, blah, blah, blah. I think they must have had some kind of check with how they were lining up going on. And I don't know that we'll get a straight answer about this this coming week, but it felt like they were trying to see how Carolina was lined up a little bit to adjust calls in the secondary based on maybe some tendencies they're showing. And they were probably being a little overthinking it a little bit. And had they known they were going to give up 42 points or whatever, they might have played a little more straight up. Is there a road to Charlotte? Yeah, it's really convoluted. I don't know that I have any interest in watching this Georgia Tech team play Florida State right now. So, beat Virginia and then get bowl eligible with another win, Clemson or Cuse or whatever. And then, if Charlotte happened, great. If not, the way the ACC is right now, no one can tell. Literally anybody could win the other side of it. So, I don't know. Will we be the first 4-loss team in Big 12? That's awesome. Is this maybe the point where we've turned the proverbial corner? A big one at home came from behind, or is the defense still too much of a problem? I mean, the defense is going to be a problem for the rest of the year. Like, there's no magic cure for any of this crap. Like, you just don't have the dudes to do it, man. Like, they were hoping maybe Eddie Kelly or Adenosa Rubin would be ready. Eddie's, a true freshman that played on the worst defensive team in the country last year at South Florida and came in via the portal as a nice little pickup. But he's a guy who shouldn't be counted on to play much, and they're able to play him 20 snaps. Tenosa is not really worked out for them at all. He is hurt a lot and just isn't able to play. Josh Robinson's okay. We still have the dudes up front, and with linebacker, it's just a mess. Every week one guy plays well, and then like two other guys struggle, and they can't really find a consistency. There hasn't really been a game where, say, the two guys they wanted to be the horses going to the season, Paul Maiola and Trinidad Tatum, both played well in the same game. So, what's the real story about Dante Smith? He's not healthy. He wasn't practicing. Like, he wasn't suspended. He wasn't in any doghouse, any of that stuff. Like, the guy was legit, like, not practicing and stuff at times. Like, he was hurt. And they're trying to be nice about it and not talk about it because I don't think Dante wants people talking about it. That's my personal take on it. I think he's very sensitive he doesn't want to be labeled as a guy that has injury problems or whatever. And I really like Dante. I've known him since he was 16 years old. And he's a very prideful guy and very private. And so he doesn't want people knowing what's going on with him. And I think that's about the gist of it. Do I think he cleans out the defensive staff? I have no idea, man. Like, it is, as I said, a talent issue on that side of the ball more than anything. I thought going into the season, the two things I was most worried about with this team was wide receiver, and Eric Singleton is pretty much single-handedly been the guy to kind of help with that and change the narrative with that group with his vertical ability and his hands. And then the other spot was linebacker, and the linebackers have not played consistently. There haven't been like a lot of games where two guys played well. If you change DCs, wouldn't that mean the DC brings in his guys? Depends on who you hire, man. Like, Jeff Collins had no guys. Everywhere he went, it was like a mercenary staff. There are guys like that, and there's guys like that have their dudes and that want their guys. And with defense, it's less common than with offense. With offense, you typically will see like, hey, I'm hiring Buster Faulkner, so I'm going to get a couple of guys that know Buster or know that system. With defense, it doesn't have to be that way. So I don't know if it's not Kevin Shearer going forward, what that is, but I have no idea where Brent is, and I doubt Brent knows this exact moment what his plan is. Regarding Mac Brown's post-game statement, is their defense that bad in those two quarters, second and fourth? And has a difference in the game looking back? What percentage of the results is Georgia Tech offense making plays, good blocks, good runs, good throws and catches, good play calling, and what is UNC crapping about defense? It is literally, like I said, a mirror image of two different teams, right? And the big thing with UNC is they've been opportunistic at times to create turnovers. Cedric Gray is his name, the linebacker. He's been a big playmaker for them. They have some decent pieces. But they've been horrible on defense since Butch Davis left. That was, 2011 when he got fired and they had Everett Withers for a year? Like, they've been bad on defense for 10 years now. 10 years solid of being bad on defense. it has not changed. It has not changed. Gene Chizik is not a good defensive coordinator. He's Ted Roof, and he's Ted Roof-esque, and ironically had Ted Roof as his defensive coordinator. But it was like a guy that no one else I know would hire as a defensive coordinator at this level. He's a guy with a ring that can't get a head coaching job. Like, how many of those are there even in the country? Like, so, it is weird. But, I think it was Georgia Tech taking advantage of what North Carolina does poorly on defense and then imposing their will and pushing. The offensive line played really well in the second half and played well in the fourth quarter and started imposing their will. Those were some big ass holes that Dante was running through. Are you able to do a CPJ interview soon, Paul Johnson? I know you have a good relationship after years of covering him at Tech. With the people he golfs with now in his long career, but he has some good stories and insights. Yeah, we talked about it very briefly. I told him I'd be in touch with him. Got a hug. He was happy to see me. I was happy to see him. I always enjoy talking to Paul, and I miss him being around. And I have been waiting for things to kind of die down with the ire from the Jeff Collins crap and Stansberry and all of that stuff. And I think now that it's calmed down, it's probably time. And I know he has a better relationship with Brent. So let's see what happens. How can Key keep the letdown against BC after the Miami win from happening again this week? Boston College doesn't suck. Like, all these teams there's no huge difference between what Georgia Tech is and Boston College. And, I think there is a difference between like Wake Forest. Wake Forest is bad this year. Like, they have a bad offense. Boston College is okay. Like, they have a good defensive coach. Like, they're pretty solid. And they have a running quarterback that's always going to give you a chance and they can run the football with 3 different running backs. Like, they're okay. They have a big offensive line. This narrative that they're like Duke in 2006 or something is ridiculous. Like, that's not what this is. Like, they're not that bad. I picked them in the bottom half of the league, but it was just based on the schedule and not, necessarily believing in. I wasn't really sure what they were going to do with Castellanos, to be honest. So it was more about me thinking their offense was going to be terrible than anything else. Is there anything the D can do against the run that'll make a difference? I don't know. What happened to Jamie Felix? He is not dressed. He got injured in camp and has not been able to climb out of the hole he's in the depth chart. And it's that simple. He's the 5th. Actually, he's like the 6th running back because he would be behind. Right now, it'd be like Dante and Jamal, Trey, Cooley, Evan Dickens, and probably Dalen Gordon and maybe Chad Alexander, 2 walk-ons, and then Jamie Felix. So he's down on the pecking order, and maybe they're trying to redshirt him. I don't know what the thought is there. Any hope of seeing Leo Blackburn play in November? Leo would like to play. He has not been cleared to play yet. We'll see what happens. This is a balancing act that Brent's got to do. What's in the best interest of Georgia Tech long term? More importantly, Leo Blackburn in long term, and then also how much does he help or hurt you, and how good is he? And he's not been cleared, so they don't know yet. Any comments from Paul Johnson about the win or applause he got it when he was on at halftime? I believe he said when he says he still pulls for Georgia Tech. Paul watched like every game like of the Jeff Collins era for the first couple of years. Like, he was like hoping they would do better than they did. Like, it was definitely not something that he was pulling against them or anything at any point. He was often puzzled by what he saw, but that was it. This is a very kind of specific question. Any updates on Blackstrain, Miguez, Juju, Ruben, Rod Shelley? Where do they fit in the long-term plans of playing time, if you can answer? Well, Tyson Miguez almost blocked the first punt of the game. He plays on special teams, has not been good enough to play in the linebacker rotation, to be blunt. Rodney Shelley is the 4th corner right now. He played a bunch in the last game and he was the highest graded corner in the game. So probably want to strike him off your list, Mike. And then he's also the backup punt returner. Juju had a pretty serious injury and is rehabbing, coming back from it. As is James Blackstrain. Those guys missed basically 4 or 5 months and have just started like being cleared to do stuff. Blackstrain's been back really since probably about the season started, slowly coming back. And he was dressed on Saturday. Juju's not been dressed yet. Be interesting to see what happens with him. Ruben just is not very good. To be blunt. Why does Key separate the non-dress players from the other players? Because he does. He doesn't like want a bunch of BS going on the sideline. Jeff had like his juice crew and everything. Most teams do that. You don't see all the guys who aren't dressed like hanging out. You'll see guys like Sylvain or Leo or like older dudes that have played that are hurt involved, but you don't want people distracting guys during the game. You want them focused on what you're doing on. A lot of our defensive players don't exercise good instinct, pattern recognition, good footwork. What's the issue? Players with poor football IQ, bad coaching. It's probably like some of it, talent, player development things. I mean, out of the linebackers you're playing, Tatum and Eford are the only. There's 5 of them that play, and only 2 of them came internally here. They all came from other places. Paul Maiolo was a safety who got converted to linebacker after he blew out his Achilles, I believe. Braylon Oliver and Andre Smith have both had battled injuries. So, actually, a funny text. So yeah, that those guys have, Maiolo has been there since June, and the other 2 kids have been there since January. You're not going to make a lot of coaching impact there. Why is Malik Rutherford so lovable? That kid's personality. I didn't really know Malik at all as a recruit. The day I got to know him was a weird day. I was down and covering like one of Jeff Collins' football camps or something, and he was just in the indoor riding an exercise bike, and I recognized him, and I'd never talked to him, so I just went over and introduced myself, and we had a really nice chat. And then ever since then, he's just been like a really fun dude. He loves playing football. He plays football like a guy who's 6'5", 200 pounds, and not a guy that's whatever 5'6" and $150, if that. It's just amazing. Realistically, what could Shearer do? Defense improve things, so we're just below average instead of god awful. I don't know. I mean, not play Drake May would help. Not play a running quarterback would help. It's hard when you have linebacker issues to play those things. Would like to know if the bad kickoffs in the fourth quarter were called or bad kicks. There were 2 of them. There were 2 squib kicks. One of them got returned to the 28, and the other one was the big return. I've updated what's going on with Tez Walker. I guess he's back in Chapel Hill now. It seems to be okay. Already answered that one. Realistically, what does Carson Beck need to work on now on Thanksgiving to give the Dogs a chance against us? Very funny if the pattern holds. Like I said on the board, I would almost take Tech over Pitt if you were picking like head to head, not even the spread, against Pitt versus Florida State and Tech versus Georgia. Like the odds, I think, are better of Georgia Tech at least maybe making a weird game for Georgia versus that. So I have no idea. You see the guy in JOL predicted the Jackets would beat UNC on Saturday. Also predicted that GT will turn around and lose in the House of Horrors the following week. Is he the next Nostradamus? What do you say? Charlottesville's been a weird place, man. That's all I want to say. Some guys discussing stuff. Why are guys getting injured so often? They get injured as much as everyone else in college football. But watch another game, dude. I often wonder if some people on the board watch other games. Like I watch on average 5 to 8 games a week. And the amount of injuries is pretty much straight up with what everyone else has in the country. Oh, apparently some security guys teed off on people rushing the field. some guy look like an employee? I have no idea. Like, send that stuff into Jay Batt's office or whatever. Like, I wasn't even down there. What did Derek Allen say to KJ Wallace? I think that was just like a good game. Derek kind of knew the deal. He just wanted to play with his brother. There's no animosity towards that. He was not in the rotation anymore. Wouldn't have been in the rotation. Here, he's not really in the rotation at UNC either, and they're bad. So yeah, there's where that is. I will jump into the chats now. Hey. Come on. There we go. People are asking about a recruiting war room. I guess Russell teased this. Good for him. What 3 positions would you hit the portal hard next season? I think they're very obvious. You need a bigger running back, which has been a huge issue really until last night. Nante's still not a huge running back. You need a couple of linebackers. You need 2 linebackers. You need a dynamic defensive end. That's where I would start. That's where I would focus my money that you're not using to keep Eric Singleton and whoever else around. Hey, hoops recruiting updates hitting the site soon. Russell's working on that. Actually, he's supposed to have an update on somebody. In your opinion, do the Jackets make a bowl game? I would like to say yes. I don't know. I have no idea anymore, man. I just don't. Kelly, you and Russell were spot on about Singleton being a breakout player before the season. When did you guys see that? Any other freshmen do you know that were going to step up? So it's interesting. I think it was during summer workouts when I started hearing about Singleton from – it was even in the summer, even before that, like right after he got on campus and they started throwing on the side guys and doing some stuff. And I started hearing about how freaky he was, and from different people like parents, players. There was just he was starting to get this whole like kind of hype machine going, which was interesting. Like I wasn't sure to make of it because I was wondering where he fit in because I wasn't sure if he was a slot receiver or was he going to play outside or what. And then after talking to people, I realized he played outside. It was interesting. The other guy that was getting a lot of love was actually Bailey Stockton, the walk-on slot receiver, wide receiver. And Bailey got hurt in camp, and that kind of set him behind. And he would be like the third slot. Like if Larry and Malik were out of the game, then Bailey would be like the next guy up, probably. And he was getting a lot of love too, but it just hasn't happened yet. As far as other freshmen, Gabe Fortson's the other one that everyone kind of talked about a lot. And Gabe has been the backup center the last 2 games, so he just haven't had to play him yet. I think they would like to hold his red shirt if possible. Let the fans know athletics wouldn't let the band play the horse after the field cleared. Don't be mad at the band. Okay. Yeah, I rushed the field and saw many other students get decked coming on. They pretty quickly gave up stopping us. Yeah, the field rushing thing, I've been in a couple different situations. I was not actually down there on that. So the story I'll tell real quick is at the end of the game, so the way it works is that at most schools where the press box is like on the side, like as at Georgia Tech, and it's facing like on the 50, and the coaches' boxes are above it or to the sides, they usually have 2 elevators, one for each team, and they'll hold those if they only have 2 elevators. So in this case, I'm walking out like right as they take the knee to end the game. And Thack grabs me, Andrew Thacker. It's like, hey, Kelly's like a coach. He can ride with us down. So I get on the elevator with like Thacker and all the guys in the box. But Buster wasn't on the elevator yet, and Brian Baker wasn't, and like one other guy. So they're waiting for them to come down. And those guys come down, and but Buster doesn't come down. So they keep waiting and waiting and waiting. So we waited for like 5 minutes. I could have like walked down in the whole time that I stood there, but it was fine. I was chit-chat with everybody. And finally, like Baker was like, let's go. And so by the time I got down, everyone had rushed the field, and they were like pulling people out that were injured that had hurt themselves. So that's So I didn't see what happened, but I've been in the situations quite a few times. I actually ended up in a field rushing situation when I was a student because I got crushed on like walking around the stadium to the east, trying to help this girl I was trying to hook up with. Um, we got caught like trying to leave the stadium after I think it beat Tennessee or somebody. Everyone rushed the field, and I lost a shoe, which sucked. Like somehow I lost an entire shoe, and I had to call my brother, and he came and picked me up. And I was at the worst field storming of all time when Kentucky beat Georgia in 2006, and the Kentucky fans couldn't tear down the goalpost. It was very funny. All right. Did Nate McCollum make a good decision? Nate McCollum made a business decision. We'll see. As I said, I was not a guy. The guys like him, man, the NFL is hard to make when you're a small guy with hands. That's not an elite speed guy. Like he's good. He's fast, but he's not like insanely fast. He's not. Who's the guy that played for the Chiefs? Tyreek Hill. Like not that. Like so. I don't know what his NFL thing. There's a lot of guys like Nate McCollum. You know, Nate has good hands and runs good routes and stuff, but he is not the world's most explosive slot guy. So, like, yeah, and I mean, clearly, I'm not wrong because he's playing a lesser and lesser role since his Walker got back. So, clearly, UNC saw the same thing I did. Say Damon Stoudemire messes around and goes dancing in year one. What would be the reason for it? Because they just outscore everybody. Like, they're putting up like 80 something points a game, raining threes. What's key with camera off? He's a normal like Southern dude. Like any one of you guys I meet like at a tailgate that's like a kid from the South that went to Georgia Tech. That's how I would describe Brent. Brent's comfortable in dealing with people that are wealthy and highbrow because of his Georgia Tech leanings, but he's a country boy. Like he wants to go sit on the beach, like Orange Beach and down in the Gulf Shores and sit there and have beers and listen to Jimmy Buffett. Like that's Brett Key. Like he is really very much like himself, like off camera. It's not like Jeff. Jeff was like a totally different person on and off camera. Paul is what you see is what you get. Paul's almost exactly like he is on and off camera. He's a little more quiet and reserved. Brent's not quite as quiet or reserved. But yeah, he's very much like he is on camera. That's not anything different. To keep Eric Singleton, they're working on that. The thing with Eric Singleton is Eric's not 6'5" and 200 pounds, and he's not Jordan Addison. So don't know that there's going to be the downward pressure to people to go spend a fortune to go get him. Did I expect that outcome last night? I told the guy from North Carolina site that I thought they were in for a dogfight, so I wasn't surprised at all. You're David Stoudemire for Georgia Southern. Who are your starting five? Eby in the middle. And then I probably size down and play Wasi and Wasi, Debo, Miles, and Kyle, and then bring Lance as like the sixth man and Amari off the bench. Why does King struggle with checkdowns? On the interception, he had Singleton in the flat to his right, could have picked up 5 to 8 yards. He really seems to very much be like, if they call a deep shot, he wants to throw the deep shot. And I found that sometimes it takes him moving around in the pocket to get him to go through his progressions as naturally as, and maybe that's just a comfort thing for him. I'm not sure, but he is not as good at just standing straight up in the pocket to read through his progressions. But I don't think that's the type of quarterback he is either right now. He's still got to get better too, man. He's left a lot on the field, especially in not this last game, but the 2 games before that. He left a lot of plays on the field and played as well. Is there a chance Leo Blackbird start practicing this week and we won't know because Brent asked to keep it on the down low? Yeah. It would depend on how the information got out, whether or not I could confirm or deny what's going on there. What is the nickname Coach Johnson had for Coach Collins? You said you would let us know. I'll save that one. Maybe that's like the Christmas show. Bowling Green was bad and they killed us. Team knows he's top. I like this guy that thinks Alabama's going to go after Eric Singleton. I don't see that at all. He does not fit the Nick. So Nick Saban has like a chart, man, like, and it's height, weight, size, speed. And if you don't fit in that thing, he does not take you. And there are really no exceptions. That's how Justin Thomas ended up at Georgia Tech. All right, any last questions, folks? Otherwise, we're going to wrap this bad boy up. Looking forward to actually, I'm not looking forward to it. The next 2 road trips are like 2 of my least favorite trips. I really don't enjoy going to Clemson because the trip sucks, especially if it's a night game. And then I don't like going to Charlottesville because it's just not a lot of fun. Best food in the press box this season. Best press box food this season. It was not Ole Miss. Not really GT. It wasn't the game in the Benz. You know what? It might have been like this, like sort of mediocre barbecue at Wake Forest that was like proof of the pudding barbecue. It was actually decent. Does Haynes King have an opportunity to be the best quarterback in the ACC next year? Sure. I mean, if he plays at the high level of his ability, which is throwing for 280 yards, 2 to 3 to 1 interception ratio, and running for 50 to 80 yards a game, yes, absolutely. You just got to not have those down games that he has from time to time. Will we have a phantom COVID delay start versus Syracuse this year? Game's here, so that should help. Any update on Jamal? I heard that he was in street clothes on the last drive. He was in street clothes in the fourth quarter, I think more than the last drive, but yeah, he was not I guess badly enough hurt that to not be out there, but they had taken his pads away. So we will find out more about Mr. Haynes on Tuesday. I'm sure Jamal would like to play. He is super happy to be playing. He's probably as excited as anyone that he's playing football right now. So Jamal and Dante are like the stories that, everyone should appreciate. These are kids that came to Georgia Tech and fought through adversity when a lot of guys would have given up and walked, waited their turn, sat on the bench, were third string guys for a lot of years. And now they're getting the opportunities in different ways. So I think it's a lot to be excited about. Is UVA the most winnable game left on the schedule? I think Syracuse is really trending down. Syracuse is the game that I think is the most winnable left, but I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining us, and appreciate you. And make sure you tell your friends about the special to Joan Jacketsonline. Has promo code Believe It, 46% off your annual subscription, 1% for every point Georgia Tech scored. I will see you guys again, probably from Virginia. So thanks everybody, and good night.